follow your passion. What do you like or what do you want to do in the future? And AI just applies for every jobs, right? Especially for a desk worker. And like we gonna work, like what we gonna work, right? AI can do this, but I want to do this more than AI. So that kind of the passion that we have to take off from the a lot of the people, and we want to try to do that's the things by software, and that's the supposed to be the base me. So.
Let's get started. Hi, Kimi. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to hear your story. The reason why I could interview you today is thanks to our common friend Ryan. He really recommends you, so that's why I can interview you. Okay, so please tell us about yourself. What do you do in Tokyo, Kimi?
Okay, so my name is Kimihiro Katsumi. You can call me Kimi. I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan, and I started Alice Kid. This is my company. I kind of start off. So I ran this company for 3 years. We're doing for the AI career platform, such as like helping for the job seeker to find a job for themselves. We started this for 4 years ago, and we bought it for 2 years ago. And right now, we're just producing for based on me. Like that's like our like AI career coach platform. Yeah, and we basically business in Tokyo, but simultaneously just preparing for the global expansion as well for the US and also like ASEAN, such as Singapore, Indonesia, but it's still like ongoing. So I hope we can explore as soon as possible. Yeah, that's my passion. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. It's good news because our audience, there are many like young folks in Indonesia. So good news. Please check his LinkedIn. Anyway, okay, so BaseMe. This BaseMe is a platform. I read some articles, but why did you start this, your startup? Why?
So, as I said, I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan. I never been to the abroad until like when I was like 18 or 19 or something. And on the first time that I visited for an abroad, it was India. Just nothing for special, but like that was like very cheap flight. And then I was a student, high school student, so I didn't have that much time. And I visited there, which was like Bangalore. Such as southern in India. It's, as you can see, very tech-oriented city, and I was really surprised at how people very enthusiasm and like why people are like climbing the top of the tech companies. And yeah, I didn't know that much about software, but like I did like really manufacturing, building something, new things. Because I go back to my childhood. My parents are running a business as well, such as kind of grocery store. We call it Yaoya. So
yes, I read.
Yeah, so we sell the vegetables, and I worked really young when I was like 10 or something.
You helped your family.
Yeah. So I didn't have that much time for my house, so I couldn't attend that much school. So I have a little bit of problem with writings, Japanese, and learning stuff. But on the other hand, I really loved business, make something new thing, and also the building awesome things. So that's what I was curious about when I was in India. For a tech person or talking about their product, it was wow, so fantastic, right? And when I back to Japan, I joined at university and like try a bunch of like startups by myself. And
you tried?
Yeah. So
what?
I just learned from coding, stuff like that. And eventually, I just find good guy in Germany. When I was traveling in that was like Indonesia probably. And I met him, so why don't we start business together? And I visited in Germany, so that's what I was just got a scholarship from the Japanese government.
Wow!
And the business wasn't go well, but went well, but like so we started in Germany for kind of how can I explain this? Personalized AI, like cosmetic. So we're gonna figure this out. What kind of the cosmetic is gonna fit for you with the artificial intelligence, right? And the business didn't go well. But I ran for a year and half a month in Germany, and eventually for Costa Rica for 2 months.
Why Costa Rica?
So Costa Rica has a very agriculture country. So they have good ingredients, coffee and herb, olive oil, stuff like that. And then like finally I moved to United States for 2 months, and that was in Long Beach on LA. And yeah, that's a little bit of my story. And then that business didn't go well. Okay, and go back, and then I just getting back for looking for a job, right? That's like how I started Base Me. And when I was a university student, that was very hard. Even like LinkedIn, even like Indeed, we called Riku Nabi Mainami. That's a giant Japanese startup, like Japanese job platform.
Yeah.
And that was very, to be honest, like not, didn't go well for me. So it's just very unuseful and very old school. So I just want to try build something new. And at the time I was really curious about climate change or renewable energies, like those are social impact issues. And okay, why do I build for the app? And then I would just start looking for my co-founder, and we met in the share house. Yeah, so that was like Toranomon, around there, and it does a
like
concept.
kind of close to Roppongi and Shimbashi. It's Minato City, kind of fancy area.
Yeah, so there's a concept for the entrepreneurial house. Okay, why don't I just start looking for a job for the engineers, for the good CDO, and then find a guy, and we started the Alaska 2021 March. We started the ethical shukatsu. That's a very job board based platform. We launched it, and at a good time was very Japanese media was very interested about product, and we featured a bunch of times. But I didn't like that much for that service, the software, because of just matching. I just want to go to more user side, more 2C product. We just want to build. Consumer product. So I just bought it to the Base Me for 2 years ago, and so now and then our mission is unleashing the value people and connect. So we would like to explore like you, which is like kind of follow your passion. What do you like, or what do you want to do in the future? And AI just replies for every jobs, right? Especially for a desk worker, right? Like life worker.
Yeah.
And like we gonna work, like what we gonna work, right? AI can do this, but I want to do this more than AI.
Yeah.
So that kind of the passion that we have to take off from the a lot of the people, and we want to try to do that's the things by software, and that's supposed to be the Base Me. So like a little bit of too long story, but like that's how I started and then also like why I'm doing this.
Okay, the 3 key takeaways from a conversation with Kimi, part 1. Pivoting from corporate synergy to user-centric growth. Initially, Kimi joined Marui Group's accelerator to leverage corporate partnership, thinking their fintech business, Gen Z customer base, and retail space would create strong synergy. However, as the business evolved, he realized that focusing on user first was more critical than corporate deals. Instead of building solutions for enterprise, he pivoted to solving real user pain points. This shift rather helped attract major clients like Toyota, JT, and Recruit. Tips: corporate partnership can jumpstart your business, but a strong user-focused product drives long-term success. Always listen to users and be ready to pivot. 2. Get your first customers before building the product. Instead of spending a month developing a perfect product, Kimi secured his first customer before building anything. Kimi used email marketing, newsletter, and networking at events. Kimi pitched the concept, gathered interest, and asked potential customers about their pain point. The first client wanted to use the product before it even existed. Validating demand. Tip: before building a full product, talk to potential users and test demand. This reduces risk and ensures you are solving real problems. Okay. 3. Winning big clients in Japan requires face-to-face networking. In Japan, large traditional enterprise (JTCs) still dominate business. Startups must earn trust through direct relationships. Kimi spent countless events at meetups and industry events, engaging with executives face-to-face instead of aggressively pitching. So Kimi, he did, asked for feedback on his product, iterate based on their needs, followed up to show improvement, building trust over time. Tip: if you are targeting Japanese enterprise client, in-person networking is crucial. Unlike the US, where software can scale via product-led growth (PLG), Japan's market relies heavily on relationship-driven sales. Okay? Thank you so much for watching our episode today. We hope our conversation will help your future and career. If you like this episode, please give it a like and subscribe it. Okay, next episode is Kimi Part 2. Please watch it. Bye bye. Ciao.